Welcome back, troops. Let's tab 59. The Special Boat Service, UK's SBS, the Royal Navy's Tier 1 Special Forces unit. I'm going to chat a little bit about them. I'm not going to give you a total history on the Special Boat Service, because there's plenty out there. But why I wanted to mention them was I wanted to do a little bit about a very unknown, I believe, quite an unknown operation that they took part in. But before we get into that, I'll tell you this little operation they carried out and why it was unusual. Let's just talk about them. So they were formed in the Second World War in 1940 as the Army Special Boat Squadron or something. And they did loads in the Second World War. Obviously, mainly amphibious warfare. But, and you've all seen the film Cockleshell Heroes, or maybe you've seen the film Cockleshell Heroes. That shows you a bit about their wartime history starting off, etc. But they were used extensively after World War II. In fact, after World War II, the Royal Navy formed them, and they went through several name changes. They were involved in operations in Korea, Malaya, Borneo, Indonesia. In 1974, they were renamed the Special Boat Squadron. So SBS, but Special Boat Squadron. And it wasn't until, I think it was 1987, they renamed finally to what we know them as today, the Special Boat Service. So many people have heard of the Special Air Service, and now we've got the Special Air Service, which is the Army, Special Operators Tier 1, and you've got the SBS, the Special Boat Service, the Royal Navy's Tier 1 Special Forces. Now, unlike the SAS, the SBS weren't in the public eye as much. If you think back to the Iranian Embassy siege in London in 1980, where in front of the world's media, broad daylight, the SAS assault the Iranian Embassy, where there's a number of hostages being held by Iranian terrorists, and the SAS rescue everybody right in front of the world's media. Now, the reason for that was the Prime Minister at the time in UK, Margaret Thatcher, wanted the whole world to see. She took a bit of a gamble because it could have gone terribly wrong. No plan survives contact with the enemy. But she wanted the world to see that if you come to this country and conduct a terrorist operation like that, you're going to face the SAS, the Special Air Service. And as luck would have it in a way, or not just luck, obviously a lot of training, a lot of planning, the SAS conducted a fantastic operation. And it did send a message to the world terrorists at the time. Now, the SBS, on the other hand, were really in the shadows. Yes, they have a counter-terrorist capability, just like the SAS do. And you can't really compare the two. I mean, they go through the same grueling selection process, but they are rolled differently. Obviously, they're more maritime. But they do have counter-terrorist capability. Now, one I can touch on that did come into the press, if you like, was the oil tanker. So, in October 2020, an oil tanker, which was Liberian flagged, left Nigeria, 22 crew on board, and it was bound for Southampton. Sometime after they'd set sail towards UK, quite near UK waters, the crew discovered that on board the ship was 7 Nigerian men who were seeking asylum in UK. And they started to get a bit out of hand as the ship got into British waters around the Isle of Wight area. So obviously, as I say, the ship was coming into Southampton. The captain and the crew managed to get into the bridge and secure themselves so they were safe in there. But they knew there was trouble, and they knew these guys were going to get violent. Although I don't believe these 7 hijackers, immigrants, whatever you want to call them. I don't believe they were armed, certainly not with firearms. So the captain of the Andromeda, the Nave Andromeda, radios a message through the Coast Guard saying what the situation is. Coast Guard pass it on to Hampshire Police, and it escalates from there. And eventually it's decided that the armed forces should get involved. And so, because it's a maritime thing, the SBS get involved. Now, unlike the hostage rescue that the SAS conducted in 1980 at the Iranian Embassy, this operation on the Nave Andromeda by the SBS wasn't filmed in the same way, because obviously the ship was out at sea and it was at night time. There is some little bits of dark footage. You can't really see to the same extent as the SAS siege. You can't quite compare it. But having said that, this operation that the SBS conducted was all over the news and the media, etc., well publicised. So the SBS, 16 men from the SBS, 16 operators, plus some Royal Navy EOD divers, because they needed them in the operation in case there had been any explosive devices placed around the ship or under the waterline maybe. So they needed them for that. Interestingly, a helicopter for this operation that came out of Odium went down to St Athens to the SFSG, the Special Forces Support Group, which is made up of the 1st Battalion of Parachute Regiment, some Royal Marine Commandos and some soldiers from the RAF Regiment. They make up the Special Forces Support Group, and that's what they're there for, that's what they formed for. They were formed so that if the SAS or the SBS have an operation, they may need some support in all sorts of different formats. But I can't really find any information to suggest exactly what SFSG assets were used during this operation. It is mentioned in the history of this operation that there was some snipers doing overwatch for the operation. So I'm guessing these snipers were in helicopters hovering back from the ship, ready to engage on the ship if needed as an overwatch. Now, it's quite possible that those snipers that were deployed for that were from SFSG, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true. So I'm just guessing at that bit, really. But that makes sense. So the 16 assaulting operators from the SBS fast rope out of the helicopter onto the deck of the ship. One team starts to clear the ship room space by space, and the other group is the assault group that's going in to try and rescue the hostages. And very quickly, these 7 Nigerian hijackers, if you like, or asylum seekers, surrendered to them, because obviously when they're on the deck, I'm pretty sure they were unarmed, and you come across a team of you can imagine how these SBS guys would have been dressed in all the gear with a night vision kit on, etc. And you come face to face, it's pretty scary. You're going to surrender pretty quickly. So they surrendered, and the ship is back under control. And then once that's all done and the hijackers, asylum seekers, are taken off the ship and into custody, it's all shut down and the ship docks as normal. So that's sort of the closest that the SBS have come to doing an SAS hostage-style rescue in the media and in British waters. So like being on British soil almost. But here's a little offer. This is what I want. This is the gist of the video now. This is what I wanted to talk about. Operation Aweless. Now, Operation Aweless was conducted by the Royal Navy with the SBS, Special Boat Service, in 1975. Now, the SBS, again, if you go back to thinking about the cockleshell heroes, the SBS, during Second World War certainly, one of their insertion methods was via submarine. And you would have these guys on board, these SBS operators on board with their foldable canoes, kayaks, sea canoes. And they would be on board the submarine would be out in the water somewhere, getting near to a coastline or nearest to a coastline or an estuary. And the SBS operators would deploy and insert by canoe. Very stealthily, very secretly. And that's exactly what happened in 1975 on Operation Aweless. 2 canoe teams, 2 kayak teams, if you like. And I'm assuming there was 2 in each kayak. So 4 men, basically. They were inserted into the water from a submarine in 1975 to conduct an operation. And where was this operation conducted? It's in Northern Ireland, Operation Banner. So on the north-east coast of Northern Ireland is where they operated, and there's hardly any information about it. You'll find if you Google it, Operation Aweless, the SBS in Northern Ireland, there's hardly anything other than teams were inserted via submarine with their kayaks to do anti-gun running operations in Northern Ireland waters, in the Irish Sea, whatever. And that's it. Doesn't say what they exactly did, what successes they had. It doesn't say anything. Now, maybe some of you people out there will either know more about it than I do, which is highly possible, or you might be able to do further research on it. I've had a good look. I spent a bit of time having a look at all this. I came across it by accident and was intrigued. So, that was a little bit about Special Boat Service and what they're about. There's plenty online and plenty on YouTube about our Special Boat Service. They are compared to the United States Navy SEALs, but not the whole of the United States Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs are broke down into teams, and their most elite Navy SEAL team is SEAL Team 6, quite famous for doing Bin Laden back in the day, and the war in Afghanistan, when they went out and eliminated Osama bin Laden. But they are the equivalent, if you like. The SBS's equivalent in the United States would be SEAL Team 6. So have a look at them. Try and see if anyone out there can find out about Aweless, A-W-E-L. I'll try and write something in the description, the exact spelling of the operation. 1975 was when it happened. So actually at that time, they would have still been known as a Special Boat Squadron and not the Special Boat Service. As I say, they go through the same selection training as a Special Air Service. It's their training after they've completed their selection, which is different in many ways. They're still parachute trained. They still wear the Special Forces parachute wings on the uniform. They wear their own cap badge, which is, again, I'll put it up on, I think it's on this anyway. And they don't wear, the SBS don't wear the sandy coloured berry that the SAS wear. The SBS retained the green Royal Marine Commando berry with their cap badge. Cracking unit. They were very small at one time. They've gradually grown over the years. Lots of secrecy surrounding them. They may be a little bit more secretive than the SAS, to be honest, but worth taking a look at. Anyway, troops, thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed, please consider it. I'm not saying do it. I wouldn't say that. I'll just ask you to consider it. That's all I'm asking. Consider subscribing, help me out. Because I've noticed in my analytics, there's about 70% of people that watch my videos haven't subscribed. That'd really help if you could. So please consider it. Anyway, troops, till the next time, stay safe and remember, let's tap.